All right, thank you, Sarah. So today we are going to be talking about the Monarch, the Mondo disease ontology. So I'm going to be giving you the intro to this, and I'm going to be handing over to Sabrina, and then I'll finish off with some concluding thoughts about where we are moving in the future. But just to give you a sense of what Mondo is and why we developed it within Monarch, we're very interested in understanding and elucidating the underlying mechanisms and etiology of disease, such that we are better able to diagnose disease, you know, uh, provide decision-making algorithms to suggest new treatments for disease, to be able to compare different diseases and organize all of this information. And this involves integrating data that often comes from different sources that have different perspectives about different aspects of disease, maybe disease gene associations, disease phenotype associations, disease treatment associations. And we want to be able to integrate all of this together. But one of the challenges here is that different groups annotate at different levels of granularity, or they use different disease vocabularies, or different disease terms, or different disease IDs. And if we want to be able to integrate all of this, then we need some kind of like unifying resource to do this. So, so one of the fundamental challenges here is that it's not always clear if we should treat diseases referenced in different resources as being the same entity. So one resource may talk about a disease called Coach syndrome. Another may talk about Joubert syndrome with hepatic defect. Another cerebellar vermis hypoplasia, oligophrenia, congenital ataxia coloboma, hepatic fibrosis, or Gentile syndrome, and it might not always be clear if these are the related disease or the same disease. There's a number of different disease terminologies, different sources of different IDs. Some of these are specialized in different domains. So, for example, OMIN and Orphanet may focus on rare and Mendelian disorders. NCIT offers a broad vocabulary that covers many different kinds of diseases, but they specialize in classifying cancers and neoplasms. So they may not have all of the concepts that we need at the right level of granularity. Then there exists other generalized disease resources such as MESH and SNOMED and UMLS. But these may have other problems such as licensing issues or lacking sufficient depth and precision and granularity in the terms that we need. Now, as is often the case with situations like this, people will make mappings or bridges between different terminologies. So you can maybe find third-party mappings, or maybe one of these resources themselves provide mappings or bridges between resources. So, for example, between Orphanet, NCCIT, and OMIM. But the problem with this pairwise mapping approach is that you end up essentially with a combinatorial explosion of potential mappings that may or may not be consistent across these different resources. And another issue is that the semantics of these mappings are not always clear. Does this mean that the two diseases are identical, or does it mean that one is more general or more narrow than the other? So we created Mondo with the idea of it being a unifying resource that essentially kind of detangles this mess of mappings and provides a unified perspective over disease, where different disease entities could be represented at different levels of granularity, all with complete attribution and provenance. So the original version of Mondo was intended primarily as a computational resource, where we took existing mappings from multiple different sources and used a probabilistic OWL reasoning algorithm to be able to resolve the meanings of these mappings and effectively push different diseases into different cliques and different clusters that we could then systematically evaluate and use to improve those mappings. But it rapidly evolved into an ontology in its own right. And as it stands today, it provides broad scope coverage across a range of different kinds of diseases, infectious diseases, hereditary and genetic diseases, cancers, and and kind of diseases related to exposure and so on. We actually have two branches, one for human diseases and one for non-human diseases. Um, and even though we focus primarily on genetic and rare disease, our aim is to include broad coverage of all of these different disease types and be a unified resource for mapping between different disease resources. So to take the anatomy of a typical Mondo term, so this might be Alzheimer's disease in Mondo with the ID 4975. You can see this on the OLS browser. Like all ontologies in OBO, terms typically come with a textual definition that conforms to certain principles. You can see on the OLS page that it lists exact synonyms, narrow synonyms, and so on. These are important for being able to do things like resolve mentions of diseases in text using text mining. You can browse the hierarchy in disease browsers such as OLS, and you can see that we also include mappings to other sources here as well as relationships to other ontologies. So you can always traverse Mondo as part of a larger knowledge graph where you might have diseases with locations such as Alzheimer's in the brain, or having particular kinds of features like neurofibrillary tangles. And Sabrina, just interrupt at the point at which you are going to take over. I think it's, do I do the slide?
I'm taking over the next slide. Yeah.
Next slide. Okay, yeah. So just to kind of leave you with some, for now, with some links before I hand over to Sabrina. So you can browse Mondo on the Ontology lookup service. This is a good place to go for any of the ontologies in OBO or in Monarch. You can also browse it on Ontobee or BioPortal, or also on the Monarch website itself. Like many OBO ontologies, we manage the ontology entirely in GitHub. You can look at the source of the ontology there, or you can follow our issue tracker and make requests and so on. And we produce the ontology in a number of different formats, in the standard AL format, but also OBO JSON. We make the mappings available in SESOM or SSSOM format, and we produce various subsets of the ontology as well. And so with that, I'm going to hand over to Sabrina for the next part.
Thank you, Chris. So this next part would be about how we are representing diseases in Mondo. And I want to make two focus for this part. The first one would be rare diseases, and the second part would be non-human diseases, because I think these are very specific to Mondo. So the representation of rare disease is a little bit complicated in the sense that how do we define a rare disease? Nobody really agrees on one definition for rare disease. First of all, the criteria for rare diseases differs between the geographical regions. So there's a disease might be considered as rare in one part of the world, but it is not rare in another part of the world. And also, there's a big disagreement about how we should be counting rare diseases. So, for example, are disease subtype considered rare or not? So we took a global approach because we're Mondo and we aim to be a global resource, and we decided that all rare diseases concept should be in Mondo as rare diseases. And we need to make sure that we add metadata so that the users can decide for themselves which rare disease criteria is appropriate for their own research and their own use cases. So we have those rare disease incorporated within Mondo. So those rare disease have the context of all the diseases, all the non-rare diseases. And we have a way to keep this information up to date. So what it means in practice is that we rely on rare diseases authorities. So in our case, the current rare disease authority that we trust are Orphanet, Nord, and Guard, and they create rare disease lists according to their criteria. We get those rare disease lists into Mondo, and we have all those diseases in Mondo that are associated with the metadata, rare according to Orphanet, rare according to Node, rare according to Guard. So this is what you can see here. In addition, we do very minimal curation to add other rare diseases. So there are rare diseases that are reported in publications or in curations of other data. These are manually curated in Mondo with a subset Mondo rare to indicate that these were manually curated as rare. And because we're an ontology, of course, we also have inferences for rare disease. So all the children that comes from a parent that has a rare disease are also getting a rare disease subset metadata. In this case, subset inference, inferred rare. And so when we look at the Mondo rare disease subset, we can see that all the terms have metadata to indicate how rare they are. So if they're rare according to which rare disease authority, and so a user can handpick whichever subset they want to use. In practice, we find some terms like this one, aceruloplasminemia, that has been reported as rare by all our rare disease authorities. Other diseases like this one, hereditary hyperbilirubinemia, has been reported as rare only from by GARD, and its children, ontological children, got the inferred rare disease. So as I said, anybody can just come to Mondo and decide what rare disease authority they trust, or what rare disease authority they it works for the use cases, and handpick those data. Just to give some statistics, we can see that only 35% of the rare disease, of all the rare diseases in Mondo, have been reported as rare by all the rare disease authorities. So it seems very important that we have that metadata, that we give the users the options and the flexibility to handpick which rare disease they want to follow. And so, as I mentioned, this is a busy slide, but this is showing how we keep all the cross references to all other disease terminologies and disease ontologies. So here you have the same examples with all the database cross-reference for this disease, whether it is a cross database from a rare disease authority or any other databases like OMEM or DO or NANDA. So that was for the rare diseases. Now I want to have a short presentation about the non-human animal diseases. So Mondo is unique, at least to my knowledge, as in Mondo integrate not only human disease but also non-human diseases. And in the ontology, those two human and non-human diseases are in two different separate branches. If you can see, we are keeping the classification parallel between the two branches. In addition, we have some semantic, of course, and the diseases are related to the taxon where the disease that is affected by the disease. So in this case, horse in taxon horse for equine metabolic syndrome. But we also have some semantic to make the relation between the non-human animal disease and its human counterpart. This cross-species analog relation is really helping for the classifying the diseases, but then also it can help later on for any analysis when we look at comparisons, data comparison. The sources for the non-human animal branch are, as you would imagine, non-human animal databases and terminology. So we have been working with the online Mendelian inheritance in animal, OMIA, which have a lot of hereditary diseases. At this point, we're almost close to 100% alignment between Mondo and OMIA that is representing a little bit under 200 animal species, uh, um, diseases of almost 200 animal species. Our next step is VNOM, which is a standard that has been used in primary care and referral veterinary hospital, the electronic patient record, and SNOMED. SNOMED has a veterinary extension, so these two, VNOM and SNOMED, are next in line for the upcoming year. So who uses Mondo? So that was how we have the diseases in Mondo. Who uses Mondo? There's a lot of different groups, and this is only just a short presentation, a short list of a much bigger list. The first user group would say is people who use Mondo for disease annotation. So this is a lot of databases, including human databases like ClinGen, who uses Mondo to make those the disease to gene variant annotations, databases for non-human animals such as PAM-base, who also use Mondo for the disease annotation. And then we have groups that work on non-human animal diseases like OMIA, who have been using Mondo to represent the disease in their database. Mondo is also used for data integration. So two examples here are EBI using Mondo in the experimental factor ontology so that they can integrate data within EBI. We are also working with another project called the Matrix project, where Mondo is used to integrate disease and drug data. And of course, I say of course because we are part of the Monarch initiative, but Mondo is also used for data comparison and diagnosis or treatment prediction. So Mondo is a big part of the Monarch initiative and everything we do related to cross-species disease discovery. So Mondo is big. There's a lot going on, and yet how can we keep up to date with all the diseases and the new diseases that we get every day? So we have first our community. We really rely on our community. We everything we do is for the community, and the community is also supporting everything we do. So the first way we keep up to date is by relying on user requests that users submit into our GitHub repository. A lot of those requests are requests for new genes, for new disease, requests for new classifications, also requests for synonyms. These are the biggest requests that we get. And most of those requests are addressed manually by one of our team members. We also have some automated changes where a user can go, for example, in BioPortal, and Chris will tell us more about that in a little bit, where users can propose a change in BioPortal, and that request would trigger a pull request in the Mondo repository, and then a curator can review that pull request and merge. So it is one step of automation. But this is not enough to keep the whole Mondo up to date, and we have resources that we keep up to date with and we keep aligned with, such as OMEM and Orphanet and the disease ontology and all the one that Chris mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. So we have, in addition to that, we have some automated and semi-automated workflow that help us keeping up to date with these resources. The first one that I will mention here is our workflow, including mappings and alignment with, as I mentioned, those resources like OMEM and Orphanet and DO. These are semi-automated and happening every month. So every month we look at what the resources have in them. So if, for example, OMEM has new terms that are not in Mondo yet, then we have a whole system to get those new diseases or those new cross-reference into Mondo, and a curator review these, and these are added. We are trying to keep up to date with that. We have this workflow run every month. So those OMEM and Orphanet and DO, we are pretty much 100% in alignment with those resources. And we're working our way up to the 100% with the other resources. We also have some other automated workflow to keep all the synonyms up to date and all the subclass of up to date according to what the other resources have. So these are pretty new workflow. These are going to be monthly processes. And automated. So making sure that what is in the other resources are also represented in Mondo, especially when it comes down to synonyms, because synonyms are very important for users. And just to mention, all the workflow that we have are also QC checks and QC checked. So anything that is automated, we don't just close our eyes and bring in. We have ways to make sure that the quality of the information is optimal. And one other synchronization workflow that we have is to update the gene to disease association, which is something that we get from OMEM. So if there's if any of you is interested in hearing more about this workflow, please reach out to one of us. So there's still more to do in order to keep Mondo up to date. And we, as I mentioned, we work closely with our community, and we realize that a lot of different groups in our community are already doing a lot of work, and they're working very hard to have very good curated information. So instead of reinventing the wheel, excuse me, instead of reinventing the wheel, or instead of just working in parallel and duplicated effort, we are working closely with these groups. And these groups are doing a great job to not only curate the information, but then also making sure that the information that they curate is actively maintained and up to date. So among these, we have groups that do expert curation of mappings between disease terminologies. We have groups that do expert curation of disease information, and we have groups that do expert curation of different subsets, such as rare diseases. So we work with those groups so that we can leverage whatever work they do, and we can get whatever work they do and incorporate it into Mondo in an automated process. So this is really helping with the fact that the Mondo team is very small. So anything we can help, any help we can get, we're happy to have. So these are the groups with whom we're currently working very actively. I will just mention here MetGen, who curate and keep very, very good and specific mappings between Mondo and MedGen and UMLS. So we're really relying on their work so that we can add this into Mondo. We're also adding link out to curated sources and also some quote unquote official preferred name, because every community have the preferred way of naming a disease. So we are also keeping this up to date, working with this group and the rare disease subset, as I mentioned previously. So as I mentioned, this update is almost mostly automated, and the way it works is by a workflow that is, I will say, very simple from my perspective. Technically, it might be a little bit more complicated, but in general, it's very simple. We basically work with the external sources. They create a very basic spreadsheet. We get that spreadsheet and run some QC checks, and this getting the spreadsheet is really fully automated. All the information that it failed the QC check is reported to the sources. All the information that did pass the QC check is automatically added into Mondo. So as I said, this spreadsheet, it's a very simple spreadsheet, and because it is a very simple workflow, it's easily scalable. And so we have this workflow for multiple external sources from whom we're leveraging the work, and we're getting all the information directly into Mondo. And not only it is reducing the work that we all do, but also those groups feel like they're part of the community and they're part of a bigger story. So this workflow not only helped Mondo and the Mondo team, but it also helped with getting the community feel more cohesive and feel more part of one group. So I will now pass it back to Chris, who will tell us about where we're going with Mondo and ontology development.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, so I'm just going to give a little taster of some of the techniques that we are adopting to help assist with automated or semi-automated assistance with parts of the Mondo workflow. So one of the things that we've pioneered recently is this ability to make for people to come into our GitHub issue tracker and to make change requests in a limited subset of natural language. And the change requests are expressed using a language called KGCL, Knowledge Graph Change Language. And the idea here is that you can come in and you can include at the start of your GitHub issue a little summoning of our bot, Ontobot. So if you type, hey, Ontobot, apply, and then you list your changes, and this is just like activating your kind of Siri or Google device or something like that. And then after that, you state the changes that you want to make using this controlled natural language. So this may be to add a new synonym to an existing term within Mondo. So this falls within the scope of the language. So you just type create exact synonym, and then you put in quotes the synonym you want to add, and then for Mondo ID. And you can batch as many of these as you like into a single issue. And then once you press the submit button, this will trigger a GitHub action bot to scan your issue and say, oh, it looks like I can take care of this because this is a request that is coming in a language that I understand. And then the bot will essentially trigger a process that will go and check out the ontology, and it will apply those changes to the ontology, make a pull request, and commit that pull request such that one of the Ontology Mondo editorial team can come in and look at that and review it. And this all happens, of course, after the normal slew of quality control checks that we make on these. So the idea here is that we free up the editors to work on higher level ontology design pattern issues and empower the community to be able to make some of these simpler kind of changes, such as maybe changing definitions, changing synonyms, moving things around in the hierarchy a bit, such that the editorial team have more of a review function here. So these PRs can be reviewed just but from the agent, just as if they were coming from an external user. And if you don't want to use the control natural language and the GitHub issues interface, you can do this right now via BioPortal. This is a part of the BioPortal grant, but we're hoping to make some of these widgets more reusable across other portals as well. So right now, if you are logged into BioPortal, you can come along and you can browse to any of the terms within Mondo, and then you can click this Add a Proposal button. And not all of the features of the change language are supported yet, but you can do certain things like adding synonyms. We're going to have something in here soon such that you can maybe propose changes to text definitions. These could be anything from like fixing typos to to actual kind of expert contribution improvements to some of these definitions. And then, of course, we're actively looking into how we can use generative AI and LLMs as a part of our Mondo curation workflows. Of course, we are not aiming to replace any curation work, actual direct curation yet. As we know, large language models are prone to hallucination and they make mistakes and so on. But yeah, they can be powerful tools to assist in some of the more mundane aspects of ontology curation. So we've actually done an analysis of how well large language models in particular are using this retrieval augmented generation approach, or RAG, as part of our Dragon AI evaluation. And here we evaluated across about 10 different ontologies on 3 different tasks, adding definitions, adding ISA relationships, adding other kinds of relationships and logical definitions. Using this approach, we found that this is potentially a promising way to essentially auto-suggest changes to ontologies, but the results should always be treated with caution because, especially in cases where you are reaching, parts of the ontology where there may not be a lot of existing knowledge in the literature about that disease. We're also looking to use our Curate GPT tool to do things such as take assertions that exist in our ontologies. Within Mondo, we've taken great care to try and back up as many assertions as possible with PubMed IDs, with ORCIDs for when an assertion is made by a person. But we still have many assertions in the ontology and knowledge base that currently lack any kind of like PubMed ID. So the basic idea here is we can use Curate GPT to do a RAG search over PubMed and find backing for statements that are within the ontology, and also find if there are potentially refutations of some of those. Like any ontology, we may have some assertions in there that are based on outdated literature, and we want to always be up to date and making sure that everything we are saying is aligned with the latest thinking on these things. You can also use our OntoGPT tool to extract unstructured text into schemas that use Mondo, and we're also making use of tools that will help us with our mapping workflows. And these include tools like Mapper GPT, which you can use in combination with our Oak Lexil matching tool. And also, if you've been watching any of the existing Monarch seminar series, we've done a few of these where we've kind of given tutorials on how to use tools like Curate GPT and OntoGPT, as well as some ad hoc workflows that you can use in combination with ontology editing. And I just wanted to show just an example of using some of the latest Curate GPT functionality in action. The experiment here was to try and build up a diseasome knowledge base, essentially something that goes beyond Mondo and tries to capture actual disease pathophysiological mechanisms as kind of a kind of causal graph. And the aim here was to go beyond rare diseases into complex diseases like asthma as well, and really to dig into the underlying cellular and molecular mechanisms of disease, so that you can kind of like break down something like asthma into a series of events involving pathophysiological insults or reactions in the body, things like airway inflammation, or some of the cell types that are involved. So the basic workflow here. And the workflow, that you can replicate this using the Dragon AI cookie cutter for essentially any knowledge base. And the workflow here is that it will use a large language model to essentially seed a knowledge base with assertions that come from its own, sometimes faulty latent knowledge that is amassed from reading every single paper in PubMed. But then to cope with the reliability problem that you often get with LLMs, we do a second pass, and again, this is all automated, using Curate GPT, where we use the site-seek functionality to essentially find evidence that supports or refutes individual assertions in the knowledge base. So this is still experimental at the moment, but we're looking to use this as a way of really fleshing out the pathophysiological mechanisms of disease. So I'll just leave you with some links for you to become involved with Mondo. We have monthly outreach calls every Friday. So this brings together people, stakeholders, multiple different experts in different disease areas or clinical terminology, where we discuss a lot of our kind of use cases and requirements. But we also have a number of workshops that are dedicated to specific topics or specific branches of the ontology, like epilepsy. We had a very successful workshop recently. And these to bring together both experts and sometimes patient groups as well. And then we've got a retinal disorders workshop coming up in 2025. So if you want to be involved, you have the links to our GitHub, and we also have a mailing list that you can get involved with as well. So just to summarize, so Mondo integrates a number of different existing medical and biomedical disease terminologies and databases. The scope is really all disease types, although we do have a focus of genetic and rare disease, but it also covers cancer, infectious disease, as well as human and non-human animal disease. It provides a unified disease classification across these different systems, and most importantly, reconciles the mappings between these different resources. We keep it up to date thanks to the diligent efforts of our curators and to all of the members of the community as well, who have a number of mechanisms for helping us keep the ontology up to date. So with that, I just want to thank the entire team here, particularly Sabrina, who co-presented this with me, Krish Wetzel, Nico Matanzoglu, Sarah, Melissa, Nicole, Katie, Joe, Yusuf, Peter, and Ada, for all of their work in helping make this resource, and in particular to our funders, and especially to all of the different existing resources who have come together and provided members of their team to help make this resource what it is. So this is everyone: ClinGen, CPath, Guard, MedGen, Nando, Nord, Omea, OMIM, OpenTargets, Orphanet, Pombase, and other model organism databases. And with that, I think we can open it up to some questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, both for this. When I saw your disease I don't know exactly how to pronounce it perfectly, but do we have any kind of idea of how much larger that is than, the current set of Mondo IDs, and like minus the kind of debates of what is a disease or not, just considering the things that are generally in scope for Mondo. Is there, in the experiments that you've seen or in the extractions that you've seen, will we encounter a lot of things that are not currently represented in Mondo when we are using techniques like CureGPT to extract diseases from the literature, or do you think it will be around 50%, or will it be like Mondo only reflects 10% of all the existing diseases? So what's
Yeah,
your
no,
kind
no,
of a
I don't
current
think the goal
intuition
here
here?
is to. Oh, sorry, you were breaking up a bit there. But the goal isn't to find. I don't expect us to find new diseases using this approach. The goal is really to um, expand the ontology with causal knowledge, the kind of things that would not fit within the existing ontology, or that would fit within some of the existing annotations within Monarch. So it's really more about the depth of the molecular representation than it is about expanding the breadth. And really, just to emphasize at this stage, it is very much an experiment. We've just tried this for just a hand-picked kind of like sample of kind of like 50 or so diseases that are intended to kind of cover a broad range of different disease types. If successful, then we can look at mechanisms for trying to kind of expand this further and to essentially use it to populate individual nodes within Mondo.